Welcome to Water Talk with Paul the Waterman, brought to you by Water Pros. Paul the Waterman is Colorado's expert on all things related to the water we use and drink in our homes. Have you ever thought about where your water actually comes from? Is it safe to drink? Is it harmful to my health, my skin, or my hair? Paul the Waterman knows water, and he has the answers. So get ready to talk to the Waterman yourself right now. Call in with your questions to talk with your host, Paul the Waterman.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Water Talk. I'm Paul the Waterman. I'm glad to have you. We have a lot of news to cover today. And is it surprising, I guess, in the way the world is today? No, but it's very, very disappointing. Listen, I'd like your comments, feedback on these stories that I'm going to share with you. So call us at 303-477-5600. That's 303-477-5600. So let's get right into it. So let's start. I first saw this from Channel 7. And I got an alert in the email. I'm like everybody else, I get signed up for news alerts, right? And so it came in, it says, Colorado state chemists caught manipulating data impacting thousands of water samples, the documents say. And so this story, again, was from Denver 7 Investigates. And, you know, a chemist in the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment appears to have intentionally manipulated data which altered the accuracy of thousands of water tests since 2020.
Your water and your confidence in Colorado's testing program.
New and exclusive information that the state has kept quiet for more than 11 months. Good evening. Glad you're with us for this post-game edition of Denver 7 News. I'm Jessica Porter.
And I'm Jacqueline Allen. Denver 7 Investigates has obtained a highly critical report raising serious questions about water testing here in Colorado and a potential cover-up by state employees.
Questions about why nearly a year after discovering the problem, state leaders, including the governor, have not publicly announced the significant failures.
Chief investigative reporter Tony Kovaleski here in studio tonight. And Tony, a source reached out to our team wanting everyone in the state to hear the real story.
Yeah, exactly, Jacqueline, Jessica. It all centers on data manipulation by a veteran scientist, apparent intentional acts that impacted thousands of water tests from all over Colorado. The source is outraged at the state's decision to keep this a secret, a decision to not inform every water user in our state. The source was afraid to talk on camera, but very comfortable in guiding our team to the inside information. It's a vital and integral responsibility, a promise to make sure Colorado's drinking water remains safe. A responsibility that requires testing of every Colorado waterway. Testing of the water provided to Colorado homes by 80 different water districts throughout the state. Now, details inside this confidential report conducted by an independent third party expose serious failures, systematic weaknesses, and a significant incident of data manipulation, resulting in major actions by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. The EPA stepped in and took concerning corrective actions. The report includes scathing details, ultimately placing into question the credibility of thousands of water tests. The timeline details the breakdowns. According to the report, the problem started here, a state lab located in Denver. The issues first discovered 11 months ago, back in December of last year. A state employee uncovered a veteran chemist manipulating data impacting thousands of water samples and raising those concerns of the reliability of water testing throughout the state. The report verifies it took lab leadership more than a month to take action against the chemist in question. In February, the lab's director placed her on administrative leave. It also confirms it took more than 3 months to notify the EPA. And a few weeks later, the EPA revoked some water certifications for the state of Colorado's lab and also downgraded other important state testing endorsements, including some drinking water testing. A month later, the chemist at the center of the data manipulation resigned. There are also questions about why it took leadership of the state's Department of Public Health more than 8 months to launch a third-party investigation. A private company based in Colorado started digging, and their report is titled Root Cause Analysis. Their conclusions followed interviews with 22 stakeholders in the department, lasting more than 13 hours. They found several alarming factors contributing to the data manipulation of those water tests, including inadequate oversight, outdated equipment, chronic underfunding and understaffing, and communication breakdowns with multiple management levels that led to what some described as a culture of fear, contributing to a reluctance by some employees to report problems. Through state open records laws, Denver 7 Investigates obtained one of the letters sent by the Department of Public Health to water districts. This one, dated October 30th, was sent more than 10 months after the state discovered the data manipulation. The letter includes, due to a lapse in quality assurance with the laboratory's analysis, and concludes, regarding drinking water samples, the division will not use the following invalidated data. The letter refers to tests done back in 2020. So months after discovering the data manipulation by a veteran chemist, the state is now notifying different water districts impacted by the failure, which leads to one major unanswered question. Why have leaders of the state's health department and Colorado's governor kept this a secret? Why have they not notified the public of what the third-party report labels as a major incident? And why internal failures contributed to, quote, a delayed response and escalation of the problem. We requested an interview with Jill Hunsaker Ryan, the director of the state's Department of Public Health and Environment. Our request was first ignored and later declined. Instead, the state sent a written statement that included they are sending out more notifications to water districts, and at this time, they don't have any evidence of acute public health risk, which raises the question, do they have evidence of non-acute public health risks? Our reporting doesn't stop here.
Wow, Tony, this is so disturbing. And, you have to ask, what about those water samples that have now been invalidated?
Yeah, this is the big question everybody wants to know. Were any of those water samples found to be contaminated in any way?
Well, it's a question that I think the state cannot answer because those water samples are no longer available. There were changes in the basic setup. So the quick answer is no. They will not know if they were or were not contaminated. It's clear they're going to have to retest every one of them to make sure they are in line with state standards.
So that was from Channel 7. And here's my take. There are disinfection byproducts. And these disinfection byproducts, this is from chemicals that are used to treated water from the waste treatment plant that end up in our water system. And these disinfection byproducts that I've been talking about for a very long time are bromate, chlorite, and then trihalomethanes. And if there's a water sample that the state is to test for the safety of the water and they manipulate that data, that's big. That's really big. And to me, the fact that they waited so long to release or be truthful about the problem is something to speak about Governor Polis's administration, because, this is, the third item that I can tell in the last, 6 months. The first one, we had from the Colorado investigation arm, they had a lady that was testing or manipulating testing in criminal cases. And then we had, our own Secretary of State. We had an issue with her releasing, passwords on voting machines, and now we have this. And you can't mess with public health. Absolutely, you can't mess with public health. And so, you got the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment is something that sets the standard. We at Water Pros use them and we felt, that this was a third party that you could trust that would give you the results that you could be assured that were going to be accurate, and then you could rely. I often send people to go to the lab, the Colorado, Department of Public Health off of Lowry Boulevard, submit their samples, especially those that live, with well water, providing feedback and testing that's going to be accurate. And so I'm concerned Is that something that, did my customers that I sent there, did they get accurate information? It causes to question everything regarding, the Governor Polis's, administration, because there's a pattern of these kind of mistakes, and then they try to cover them up, and then somehow it takes a third party, someone within the lab, to go ahead and leak this to the news. Channel 9 also did a segment that let's go ahead and play that one.
The state health department says a chemist there was faking water quality tests. They discovered the problem in February and chose not to tell the public. About 3% of the state's drinking water sources are now being retested for barium, chromium, and copper. Tonight, 9 News investigates why the state chose not to tell anybody. Here's Steve Steger.
The issue is that the high-quality analyses that people paid for weren't done according to EPA standards and cast the conclusions in doubt.
It began with an anomaly, something not adding up inside the state's water quality lab back in February. CDPHE tells 9 News investigates now that a manager back then started looking into a chemist's work and found intentional disregard for protocol around one specific test that looks for traces of metals like copper, chromium, and barium in drinking water. That investigation started in February, but by April, the EPA noted the state still hadn't determined the scope of the problem and had no plan in place to notify the public water systems that may have been impacted that there was a problem. The EPA revoked the state lab certification to do that testing.
So it's going to take a long time to sort through how far back these errors are, what is the impact.
Mark Edwards is a civil engineering professor at Virginia Tech who helped uncover a crisis in Flint, Michigan, where public water was contaminated with lead. We asked him to look over the documents that 9 News investigates obtained through an open records request. He says the problem here is control data appears to be what's falsified, meaning there's really no way to tell if old tests were accurate.
One of the tragedies here is we really don't know. I mean, did the people who submit those samples get told their water was safe when it wasn't? In which case it could cause an acute health risk, or maybe these errors are inconsequential.
The state health department told us there's no evidence of any acute risk to public health and stressed this data problem only impacted about 3% of Colorado's public water systems. But they told the EPA they found problems in data dating back 5 years and originally noticed problems in June of 2022. But didn't do anything about it.
Unfortunately, science is based on trust, and when you're paid as a lab technician, it's assumed that folks don't cheat. And unfortunately, we're getting more and more examples of cheating in laboratory analyses.
So far, we know this impacted 69 of the state's 2,000 or so water systems. We know that because about 10 minutes before we went on the air here, we got a list of them from CDPHE. They include several small towns like Nucla and Aguilar and Bethune, and some schools, too, middle schools and elementary schools. We're going to put the full list in the digital version of this story on 9news.com. The EPA tells us while these issues are serious, this, again, doesn't mean that there was something wrong with the water, just that there's unusable data that can't confirm the water quality met federal standards at the time, Kyle. So they're urging caution. Don't read too much into this, but still a lot we don't know.
I feel like how many times have we been here, right? Somebody makes a mistake, screws up badly, and then the question is, are you going to tell people right away, or are you going to sit on it? What, they found out in February?
They found out in February, notified the EPA about that 2 months later, and then we just learned today that those 69 water districts, some of them learned in August, others learned in October. So that's 6 and 8 months after this initial problem was noticed.
Steve Sager, thank you.
Yep.
So how many residents did that affect? What was the total number of Coloradoans that had a false assumption that their water was safe and the tests were manipulated? That's the question. And then, here's a quote from the story. It said, at this time, we do not have any evidence of acute public health risk. The state public health laboratory takes quality assurance very seriously. What a crock. I mean, that's an oxymoron. They take it very seriously, but they allowed this manipulation to go unaccounted for or did not tell the public. And this goes back to 2020. I'll tell you. Let's take a commercial break. We'll be right back. What's in your water? Are you concerned about drinking hormones, antibiotics, or dangerous chemicals? Paul the Waterman here from Water Pros. Don't wait to be sure your water is free from those contaminants. Have our professionals help with affordable solutions. Visit waterpros.net today. Water Pros is proudly military owned and operated. All products made in the USA.
Water Pros end of year special for KLZ listeners is here. For $31.95, receive a whole house smart computer water softener and a point of use reverse osmosis drinking water system. Get rid of hard water. Eliminate dry skin. Feel the difference in the shower. With the holidays just around the corner, remove the forever chemicals, pharmaceuticals, and microplastics and provide your family with the best this holiday season. Call Water Pros 303-862-5554 or find them on the KLZ radio programming page.
Colorado's residents are known for healthy lifestyles, outdoor living, and clean organic eating. 100% Colorado-owned and operated Water Pros provide affordable in-home water treatment options. Water Pros can help you with hard water, lead, and forever chemicals in your drinking water. Living organic means eating organic, and eating organic starts with clean water. Learn more about your water and schedule your free consultation today. Waterpros.net. Water Pros. Healthy water means a healthier you.
This is KLZ 560 AM, your home station.
Welcome back to Water Talk. I'm Paul the Waterman. You can give us a call here with your comments at 303-477-5600. Tell me what you think about this story. Again, that's 303-477-5600. So let's dive in a little deep to this. So the information that was provided to investigators notes that the EPA was only notified after it came in for its regular accreditation process with the state. So they weren't saying anything until they absolutely had to. Thus the cover-up. That is not acceptable, ladies and gentlemen. We have to do a better job at having our local officials be accountable for these kinds of errors, and these are errors that were on purpose. Why would somebody in a lab want to purposely manipulate lab results? This I do not understand. What's the purpose of that? Why even do, if you can't do your job or you don't want to do your job, why do this? Right? I mean, seriously. Okay. The other thing that you have to think about here is that thousands of water tests since 2020. So again, what communities were affected and exactly what tests were done. Now, what we did last week is that we went to the National Primary Drinking Water Regulations, and I was talking about contaminants that are in our water supply simply by the process of disinfection the water. They're called disinfection byproducts. The levels of total trihalomethanes have to be at 0. And this is a byproduct of drinking water disinfection. It can cause liver and kidney or central nervous system problems, increased risk of cancer. This is why the state, working with water districts and doing testing to ensure that the quality of water that's being provided to our residents is safe within the limits. This is why I say we have to take our own responsibility for treating our water. We really do. We can't rely on the city government, the state government, or the federal government to provide us clean drinking water. See, why have a Safe Drinking Water Act passed by Congress if we have a lab that's going to fudge the numbers? And you know it's serious because the EPA removed the accreditation of the lab. So now where's it going? Who's doing the testing? What third party is being hired by the state of Colorado to test our water? And do they have the capability of testing the water? Is it out of state, or is it a local Colorado lab here? I know there's a couple of them in the Denver metro area. Are they doing the testing now? These are questions that we absolutely should understand. The quality of your water that's being provided to you, you take for granted. And if we're relying on the lab to make sure that the chemicals that are being used to treat the water do not exceed limits that start becoming unhealthy to us, what do? I'll tell you what we do. We do it ourselves. And that's when it starts with the point of use reverse osmosis drinking water system. the reverse osmosis. The EPA, here's something funny. The EPA is going to get involved and mandate reverse osmosis drinking water filtration systems, and they're going to give a seal of approval. I think I forget the name of it, but it'll come to me. But the EPA basically is going to be an EPA-approved reverse osmosis drinking water system where they want something that's underneath the sink to be able to not waste more than 2 gallons of water. So in other words, you can waste 2 gallons of water to produce 1 gallon of drinking water. That's pretty much the standard right now in the industry, but I find it fascinating that the EPA wants to get to that point. The other thing that we have to go back to, contaminants that are in our water supply that you really should be concerned about, and that's, the chloramines. What is chloramines? Chloramines in the water is basically the disinfectant that the Denver Metro and all the other Aurora, Parker, Douglas County, Adams County uses as a sanitizing disinfection in the water treatment, and this is what they inject in the water as it's coming into your home. And so, definition of what is a chloramine? A chloramine, in this case, for water treatment, is actually monochloramine. It is one of 3 chloramines, which are chemical derivatives of ammonia. That's what they're using. They're using ammonia mixed with regular chlorine and called it a chloramine. And the reason why they're doing that, ladies and gentlemen, is because it has longer contact time. It stays in the water. It doesn't dissipate, doesn't go away. That's why when we go into homes and we test water, we also do what we call the total chlorine test from the hot water side, so we can show folks that it actually builds up and has a greater number of total chlorine coming out of the hot water heater tank than what's in the cold water. So that's something that you don't want to be breathing in when you're taking a shower with the steam. You absolutely don't want to drink it. And the thing, this goes back to what we talked about when you're trying to deal with chloramine. You have to have a filter that's specifically designed to remove the chloramine together, because if not, if it's just a generic carbon filter, and you will remove the chlorine, but then the ammonia stays. And believe it or not, the ammonia by itself is worse than if you drank it together as a chloramine. Something else that came to a thought. It says in August, the EPA permanently revoked other methods performed by the chemist prior to the completion of the third-party audit. So the lab, the health department, has no current information that demonstrates similar intentional disregarded or protocols with other revoked methods. Long story short, what else was revoked? And if the EPA comes in and removes their ability to the state public health laboratory to test our water, including trace elements instead of copper, barium, and chlorium. What else? Is it the total bacteria test? Were those manipulated too? How many folks out there submitted a public sample, well water sample to the state health department to do a bacteria test? And a lot that, when you do a real estate transaction, if you're doing a government-sponsored mortgage like through the VA or an FHA loan, you're relying on that lab to give you a test, a fail or pass regarding bacteria. How many of those were done wrong? That's something that we talked about as well. If you got bacteria contamination in your well and you have what's called coliform bacteria, one of the worst things you can do is shock it, because shocking is a short-term solution, not a long-term. If you shock your well just to get a pass for bacteria, you're not doing the new homeowner justice. I can tell you that right now, because eventually that chlorine is going to dissipate and that bacteria is going to be right back there. So, what else is there? One of the things that we should think about is reaching out to our local leaders and asking them, what's their plan? We need to make a phone call. We need to call the water district. We need to get reassurance from our water district. We need to ask them, did this affect us? Let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. What's in your water? Are you unknowingly drinking hormones, antibiotics, or dangerous chemicals? Paul the Waterman here from Water Pros. Now is the time to have our professionals help you with affordable solutions to be sure your water is free from those contaminants. Call Water Pros today and visit waterpros.net. Toxic chemicals and bacteria last forever in your water if untreated. It's a crucial time to think about the quality of your water to be sure it's safe for you and your family. Call Water Pros today or go to waterpros.net. Water Pros is proudly military owned and operated, all products made in the USA.
If you have hard water, smelly water, or water that just tastes bad, improve the quality of your water with the professionals at Water Pros. Water is a precious resource that's a part of everyday life. Harmful cleaners, forever chemicals, microplastics, and pharmaceuticals end up in our water supply, and they don't just magically disappear. Water treatment should not cost tens of thousands of dollars or require long-term financing. For KLZ listeners, a complete Water Pros water treatment system start at only $31.95 installed. See why people are trusting the professionals with Water Pros. Water Pros is a family-owned and veteran-owned business dedicated to providing you the best in water treatment for less than the other guys. Go to waterpros.net today and request your free water test, or call 303-862-5554. That's 303-862-5554. And ask for the KLZ Listener Special. $31.95 for a whole house water softener and point of use reverse osmosis.
The EPA is making changes in regulations for water safety because of elevated levels of lead, Gen X, and forever chemicals in water supplies. Locally owned and operated Water Pros has home treatment solutions ready to install today. Water Pros employs the latest technologies and an expertly trained staff to help you with hard water, lead in your water, and mitigating forever chemicals. Full home solutions started in 1995. Book your complimentary test and consultation now, waterpros.net.
KLZ 560, your home station.
Welcome back to Water Talk. If you have any questions or comments on this story we're talking about this afternoon, give us a call. 303-477-5600. That's 303-477-5600. And so 80 different water districts it tests for was affected, and then among other, according to the state labs, 69 of the state's districts are impacted by this data manipulation. So that means it was false. 69. So again, how many total customers did that affect, and what information was manipulated? That's what we need to know. I cannot believe that we live in a world today where we have state government agencies that are manipulating test data for the safety of the drinking water. I've always said water is life. What is, everything we need to function today in society is water, right? Water with the plants, and so we have water that we need to make the tomatoes. And Thanksgiving is just around the corner, so water's going to make stuffing. Water's absolutely going to make the gravy. Water's absolutely going to be an ingredient in making the pies. Water absolutely is going to be an ingredient in making rolls. Water. And so we want to rely on the quality of our water. Ladies and gentlemen, this story today cements it for me that we have no choice but to take the quality of our water in our own hands. I would start with a point of use reverse osmosis. And if you live in an area with really hard water, you can give our office a call at 303-862-5554. That's 303-862-5554. Right now, Colleen's standing by ready to talk to you and set an appointment for a free in-home water test, and we'll sit down and go over the results. But soft water is necessary if you live in a hard water area to have a properly functioned point of use reverse osmosis. And even, I think we need to consider, having a standard piece of equipment in whole home protection for drinking water is the whole house ultraviolet light filtration system, the UV, to zap bacteria and bugs. We're relying on people. We're relying on non-elected officials to assure that the public has a source of clean, safe drinking water. And let's face it, sometimes, people wake up, they're having a bad day and things don't always go well. I mean, it happens to the best of us, but you can't have integrity compromised in state lab testing. You just can't. And the fact that this was first exposed in December of last year, and they waited to February? And they didn't say anything to the EPA until they absolutely had to. And the reason why is because the EPA was coming to the lab to basically do the recertification. And that's when they spilled the beans. And so then the EPA revokes, as they should, the lab's ability to test. And now we're relying on a third party. Again, let's recap. What are the major concerns that we have with our water coming from a municipality? That is the disinfection byproducts that are put. So here's what happens. We talked about chloramine just a little bit ago. So chloramine, as it gets from the water source. So, all right, so you have a municipality, as they're getting ready to pump water to your home, at that point, that's when they're injecting the chloramine. So it's simultaneous. So the water's going to your home and it's being dosed with chloramines. But as it gets released from the waste treatment plant, that's when they use the disinfection byproducts to make the water sanitized again, when they remove the human waste. Now, what's involved in that? So you separate the sludge, and then the water's released back into the environment. But at that point, that's when they use these other contaminants that we're concerned about, the disinfection byproducts, the bromate, the chlorite. These are byproducts of drinking water disinfection. Chlorite and causes anemia in infants and young children and affects the nervous system. Bromate, a product of disinfecting drinking water. You have to excuse me. I'm so excited right now and frustrated about what the heck's going on. So sorry about that. So bromate and an increased risk of cancer. Now, when they ship the water back out, put it back in the reservoir, the Platte River, somebody downstream is pulling it right back out again. That's where I say we have reusable water. But if you live in the city of Castle Rock, they're upfront about it. They're telling you that 35% of the water that's being sent to your home right now is directly from their waste treatment plant. So that's why it's critical. It's critical that we get testing from the state from a reliable source. And so right now, the state of Colorado, that's not doing it anymore because they got revoked. So again, there's a third party doing it. This is also where we have to ask and get the truthful response of how much pharmaceutical contamination is in the water supply today. How much leftover fentanyl is in our water? How much leftover puberty blockers and hormones are in our water? What's the leftover cocaine and heroin that's in our water? Not to mention acetaminophen that's in the water. I think it's time that we all make a phone call to our local water district and ask those questions. And the other thing that they have to stop doing, in my personal opinion, is telling us that it's purification or purified water, because it's not. It's not purified water. Now, I know some plants send the water through what they say is a reverse osmosis system. I've seen an Aurora off of Quincy, when you start heading east, heading out of town, past 470, they have that, it says reverse osmosis water treatment plant on a big sign. And, I understand that, but then, when the water is sent right back to us, what are they doing to it? They're injecting it with chloramine. So you really can't call it purified water. So have them explain to us in grand detail the type of filtration that they're doing. Because in the water quality report, we're still getting reports out of that water quality report. I remember in mine reading about the total trihalomethanes. Now, total trihalomethanes are because the chlorination process, the chloramine process, that's 100% the byproduct of drinking water disinfection. And again, the trihalomethanes can cause liver, kidney, and central nervous system problems and increased risk of cancer. So everything that we talk about regarding the disinfection byproducts of our water all have one thing in common. It's the increased risk of cancer. So I'm going to kind of go off script a little bit with water talk because I think we need to also talk about the state of Colorado, Governor Polis's administration, and one of the things that, was we learned about right before the election was, our Secretary of State, Ms. Griswold, releasing passwords on voting machines. And didn't we put Tina Peters in jail for something like that? So, we have the state of Colorado Secretary of State having issues. Now we have the Colorado Public Health, the lab having issues, not being truthful, and a problem that went on for months, over 8 months before it was even released. And even then, they're not telling us all the information. I want to thank those folks from Channel 7 and Channel 9 for, bringing it to, our attention. And I'm grateful for that because it's something that we really need to pay attention to. So what do we do? The other thing that we have to think about that's coming, the big question, is the EPA has a mandate on PFAS, forever chemicals. And that's something that we have to meet the new EPA standards. So remember, I've always said that you don't need to have a large number when you have a contamination concern. So part per trillion, that's what the EPA is mandating. They want PFAS reduction. It started at 17 part per trillion. That's a small amount. Years ago, people never worried about contamination because they used to say, well, the number's so low, it's a part per trillion. How's that going to hurt us? Well, guess what? It does hurt us because the EPA now went from 17 part per trillion to 4 part per trillion, where now the EPA comes back and says 0. It started out 4 known chemical contaminants made up the PFAS family. Now it's up to over tens of thousands contaminants in our water that make up the PFAS family. But municipalities are going to have to get down to that 4 part per trillion or less in our water supply. And who are we going to rely on to make sure to tell us that that information is correct? Looks like the state of Colorado Public Health Department, that lab, has a lot of work to do to rebuilding public trust. But why did it even happen in the first place? Why fudge numbers that public health and water safety? Why do that? That goes back to the lady that worked for the crime lab, right? Didn't she, fudge? How many years was it that she, remember that story, Luke, that lady that fudged the blood test? There's a lady that fudged blood tests, worked for the, I think it was the Colorado Bureau of Investigations. And that was exposed. And how many people, innocent people, were put in jail because of that? It's systemic issues within our Colorado state government of problems. And it's just, we have to really do a better job at paying attention to our local elections and making sure that we elect the right people. But the other thing is we have to do a better job at who and insist on, who the state hires, because these people that messed up, working in the lab, they weren't elected. They were hired and appointed. And, a lot of people say when you get a government job, it's something that, it takes a act of Congress to get fired. I don't know what to say. This is just so frustrating and so disappointing. And like I said, I use the state. I sent tons of customers of ours to the state of Colorado to do lab testing and for bacteria testing and for lead testing. I don't know what to say. It's so frustrating. So let's start by this. Let's figure out, how do you treat the problem? So you treat the problem with the point of use for reverse osmosis. That's the first and foremost. Second, I definitely recommend people think about doing a whole house ultraviolet light filtration system, and both of those should be supported by a whole house water softener. So the first thing you want to do is remove the hard water and then allow those filters to do their job. See, the ultraviolet light filter absolutely needs to have clean, clear water for it to function. So what an ultraviolet light does is it filters the water as it flows through the home, and it zaps the viruses and bacteria. Hey, Jim, thanks for calling. I appreciate it. How can we help you?
Hey, listen. I just kind of wanted to make a few comments here. Not very much, but politicians absolutely crack me up. But because they're really, I don't consider politicians to be too bright. Even bureaucrats, they're really not too bright. So, years ago, I was taking this college course through the University of Phoenix here in Denver. And we had this gentleman that was he knew quite a bit about the water throughout the country and whatnot, and the filtration stuff like what you're talking about. And he actually said that they really could, if they wanted to spend the money, they could actually filter out the water actually cleaner than the water that they're actually pulling out of the rivers. But he was claiming that the reason why they don't do it is because of the expenses and whatnot.
I believe that. I'd agree with that, Jim. Absolutely.
But, the thing about the bureaucrats and these politicians, they always think they're getting one over on the people. But, on the food and the water thing situation is, they never stop to think that, even though they think they're pulling one over on the public with some of the stuff that they do, they never stop to think that, they're drinking the same bloody water as the rest of us.
Absolutely.
You understand what I'm saying?
No, it is. Yeah. It's that they're eating the same. They're eating the same food, Jim, that's made by the water. I mean, they're no different, right? I mean, wouldn't you agree?
No, absolutely.
Jim, let me ask you a question. Why do you think government employees? Because that's why they're government employees. I mean, why would anybody want to manipulate tests? I mean, that's. I have no clue. Why would they want to do that?
I don't know. I just figure they're just, none of them are too terribly bright. I've always equated government workers like this. You had your A students and your B students in school, college, and the whatnot. And those people, they got into the public sector, became doctors or became professionals and whatnot. And then you had your C and D students, and those are the ones that really, they couldn't make it in life. So they go into the public sector because that's the only place they really could land a job. and I truly do believe that.
Common sense. Wouldn't you agree, Jim, that common sense is a dying commodity in today's world?
Well, common sense. But my grandmother also used to say too, human beings are lacking a lot of good sense as well.
Right.
You know what I'm saying. But, as far as some of the water, I'll tell you what, I've lived here my whole life, like my parents, my grandparents. And, we used to take a lot of, because we have relatives that live out there in western Nebraska. And we used to always stop right there and Brush. There used to be a little restaurant there to stop, and we'd have dinner or something, or pie or whatever. And, and my parents, they would never drink the water. They'd always drink the coffee. And I'm like, well, this doesn't make no sense. It's like the coffee's made out of the same stuff as the water. And they said, yeah, but at least it gave it a little bit better flavor than the water that was coming out of the tap.
Maybe the coffee grounds absorb some of the contaminants, hopefully.
But, hey, we're talking about, that's like 50 years ago. And they were flushing that stuff down the rivers 50, 60 years ago. And it's just gotten worse. Me and a buddy of mine, we used to sit over here. I don't know if you know where Welby Gardens used to be over here, off of Interstate 76 over here in, 74th or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And we used to watch those guys from the water treatment plant. They'd come over there next to the Platte River and do their testing and stuff. And we used to sit in this park and drink, and we used to harass the crap out of those people about, oh, sure, you guys come over here and test this water when it's not stinking, but I said, we never see you guys over here when it's really stinking real bad.
All right, Jim, thanks for calling, brother. Have a happy Thanksgiving and a Merry Christmas, brother.
You too now. Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, thanks, Jim. We appreciate it. Hey, let's take our last break, and we'll be right back. Hello, Paul the Waterman here for Water Pros. In the last 6 months, you've received letters from your local water company regarding the dangerous forever chemicals in your water. Several local news television outlets have done segments on the dangers in our drinking water. Trust me when I say pharmaceuticals are the next issue. Water Pros employs the latest technology and an expertly trained staff to help you with hard water and mitigating forever chemicals. Full home solutions starting at $21.95 installed. Book your complimentary water test now at waterpros.net. That's waterpros.net.
Water Pros end of year special for KLZ listeners is here. For $31.95, receive a whole house smart computer water softener and a point of use reverse osmosis drinking water system. Get rid of hard water. Eliminate dry skin. Feel the difference in the shower. With the holidays just around the corner, remove the forever chemicals, pharmaceuticals, and microplastics and provide your family with the best this holiday season. Call Water Pros 303-862-5554 or find them on the KLZ radio programming page.
You're listening to AM 560 KLZ, your home station.
This is Water Talk, and I'm Paul the Waterman, and give us a call at 303-477-5600. That's 303-477-5600. Luke is standing by, ready to take your call. And so Thanksgiving is right around the corner. And, before I forget, I want to wish a happy 16th wedding anniversary to my darling wife, Colleen. Happy anniversary. Love you very much. Okay, so something that's kind of fun that I saw I want to share, and this is from the people at Roto-Rooter. So Mr. Rooter talks about Thanksgiving, and the day after Thanksgiving is one of their busiest times of the year. And it's not because it's got the clogged toilet. It's because of the clogged drains in the kitchen. After, a typical Thanksgiving dinner, when we're cooking, we're using the garbage disposal. We're putting everything down there from leftover stuffing to turkey skin to, the broth and bones. And they said that, this time of year, especially, Thanksgiving and the day after, is what happens with clogging of sinks. So they have some ideas or thoughts that I want to share with everybody. For this Thanksgiving. Man, I just can't believe Thanksgiving's already next week. Holy moly. Next thing you know is that it's going to be, Christmas. And how many of us have started Christmas shopping yet? I know I haven't. Okay, so it says never pour grease, turkey drippings, cooking oil down the drains. They can solidify in the pipes, basically form like candle wax. And so that's a really good topic to think about. When you're pouring grease, never pour grease down the drain. Some people think, well, if you run hot water and I dump the grease, but what you have to think about is the distance that it has to travel. So, that hot water will go down your sink drain, but then it's got to go into the main septic line. And then at that point, it's going to meet other water and it's going to cool and it's going to solidify. And it does, end up like candle wax. It says, the second point is don't put potato peels, poultry skins, bones, rice, or pasta down the garbage disposal. At one time I removed our garbage disposal because we had that exact problem. A garbage disposal is not a wastebasket. And they say you should fill up both sides of your sink. If you got two sinks or if you got one big sink, they say you should fill that up all the way to the brim with water and then release it and allow all that water flow to flow down to help clean out, the drain. And I think that's a good idea. It also talks about make sure that your garbage disposal is running when you add food scraps. And then this is something that it says don't flush wet wipes down the toilet. Most won't dissolve and may clog drain pipes and sewers. Okay. This is kind of funny. They recommend that you place plungers in guest bathrooms to save a guest the embarrassment of asking for one. That's a good point. And then it's like spread out, if you got folks staying with you, spread out the showers and laundry so you don't load up the pipes and pipes have time to drain. So if you don't have a water softener, you have to remember Soap scum also is an issue. Hard water and soap scum is probably the top one or two reasons why we have clogged drains. And I mentioned this before. If you don't have a water softener, especially, and you shave in the morning before, going to work, and you got a slow-moving bathroom sink, that's because the hard water with the soap and then the shaving cream, it all curdles. And then it traps there in the little gooseneck portion. Some people call that the P-trap, where water flows, and that can trap right in that point there and cause slow flow from water. So I think it's a good idea, regardless, of always filling up the sinks and then letting water, run down, doing that a couple times to help flush. And in some cases, if you got a busy household, it's probably not a bad idea. You can do it now, because it's before you, shut off the outside hoses for good because of freezing. But, pour a 5-gallon bucket of water down the sink. And that helps with, because garbage disposal, think about that. How fast, when you dump something in the garbage disposal, it's only chopping it up. And then water, you're running water at the same time. And so you're running that through. So in some cases, a lot of the fruits and vegetables that you're asking the garbage disposal to chop up doesn't get chopped up that much. And so as it goes out into the drain, it's going to get caught by other substances, other debris. And so it's a good idea to drain those secondary drain lines, your kitchen sink, your bathroom sink, and, just pour water down there. High flow, if you dump a bucket of water and water's flowing, that pressure will help clean those out. So that's a good maintenance thought. So I want to thank the folks at Roto-Rooter for coming up with these really good tips, especially the plunger in the bathroom, in the guest bathroom. That's a really good idea. Kind of a recap on what we went over today is it's really important now. You can go online. Amazon has it. You can go online and buy a well water test kit that also has a bacteria test. You're gonna spend about $35. But I think we need to start being responsible for doing our own testing. And if it's positive on bacteria, it won't tell you what type of bacteria it is, but, within 24 hours, you'll get an indication. It's a color indication, what the bacteria, is it negative or positive? And then I guess what we're going to have to do is find a secondary lab to do testing for us. The thing that bothers me about this, though, is there's a lot of secondary labs out there. I call them secondary labs because the state of Colorado, to me, was the primary source. But there's some secondary labs out there that are affiliated with water treatment companies, and I think one of the most unethical things out there is trying to use a lab to sell water filtration, water treatment. I know, there's an outfit up in Evergreen that tries to, say that they have a lab and use lab results and scare people because of, radon in the water, which is normal, and uranium, which, they're normal, it's in Colorado water, but, you shouldn't do that. I think that's where you draw the line. A lab should be something that has no business or no part of trying to sell water filtration. Their main business is just giving you the results that you can trust that are accurate. And so, and then, what I was saying before, Jim was kind enough to give us a call, ultraviolet light filtration, that's something that, we're going to really have to, Water Pros is going to think about, adding that as a part of the package, for home water filtration. We're going to have to, because bacteria, coliform bacteria, E. coli bacteria has been an issue. I know the city of Inglewood has had outbreaks with bacteria, but for folks that have health issues where they have to do nasal rinses, nasal flushes, they tell you to use distilled water or, reverse osmosis water can work. But, if you had an ultraviolet light filtration system in your home that can zap viruses and bacteria, I think that's A1. Again, and everything starts with soft water, because everything that you're doing to filter water really needs to be functioning in soft water. It has to have absence of hard water. And the reason is that hard water will create shadows and will, create a film over the ultraviolet light. So then if there's shadows and film on that UV light, then it's not going to be effective in zapping the bacteria or virus. And remember this, what happened during COVID, it was all over the news where they were testing for live viruses at a waste treatment plant. And to me, that just blows my mind, because that means that you don't test for a dead virus. So if a virus was living in the waste treatment plant, that was chlorinated water. right? Because not everybody has a filtration system. So if you're running water through the sink, it goes down the drain, that still has chlorine in it. So it's really important, to think about, starting with the water softener first, ultraviolet light, and then have that point of use reverse osmosis drinking water filter system. The point of use reverse osmosis drinking water filter system will give you peace of mind because it will attack organic pharmaceuticals, get those elements out of the water so we stop drinking them. It'll absolutely remove, the trihalomethanes that, are a byproduct of disinfecting the water. It'll absolutely remove the forever chemicals, the PFAS. And, it'll also help with those, microplastics. I mean, look at the double whammy we have, triple whammy, PFAS. That's, microplastics, pharmaceuticals, holy moly. And now we have a situation where the state of Colorado has a lab that's been decertified because they decided to fudge the numbers, and this goes back to 2020. I'm so disappointed in that. If we take our own responsibility and give ourselves, clean, treated water, and then that gives you a peace of mind, then you go on a proper filter, maintenance replacement because water filters don't last forever, especially with the amount of contamination that we have. I used to say, water filters could last 3 to 5 years. But now with all this contamination issue, I'm starting to think maybe we should change them every 2 years. And that's also going to be based on usage as well. Think about when you're, during the holidays, think about how much water you are using. When you're putting together this Thanksgiving dinner, with the pies and the desserts and then the stuffing, the gravy, everything requires water, doesn't it? And so it's up to us, ladies and gentlemen. I hate to say it, but we really can't rely on anybody but us. We're going to have to start taking care of ourselves, and I think we're going to have to start getting involved and getting with our local leaders to make sure that, they give us more information about what's really in our water. So this is the end of our show today. I hear the music. Time goes by. I want to wish everybody a heartfelt, happy Thanksgiving. God bless you all. We'll see you.
Remember to reach out to Paul the Waterman with your questions and water filtration needs, and be sure to tune in to Water Talk Thursdays at 2 p.m. to talk with Paul. And for more information, find him on the programming page at klzradio.com.